Welcome to Lesson 1.2, Comparing and Ordering Integers. Today we're going to talk about interpreting statements of inequality as statements about the position of two numbers on a number line diagram, write statements of order for rational numbers, interpret statements of order, and explain statements of order for rational numbers. So really the big part about today is understanding how to order rational numbers. In this case, we're really going to focus on integers, and how to determine their values in terms of least and greatest. All right, so first we're just going to start with looking at positive and negative numbers. So previously what we had done was we had worked on plotting points on the number line with our negative numbers. And what we know about number lines is that as we move up the number line, so if I'm down here, as I continue to move up my number line, I know that my numbers get larger. They get greater in value. Okay? And I know that typically we know that 5 is bigger than 3. But now when you look at negative numbers, it's a little different because we know that anytime that we move down the number line, our numbers get smaller in value. There we go. I can write the word less. Okay, but now look at this. Here we have a -3 and a -5. So on the positive side, 5 is actually larger than 3, but on the negative side, -5 is actually smaller than -3. And the best way that I can use to make a little bit more sense of this is if you're talking about money. So somebody that owes the bank $5 is going to have more money than somebody who only owes the bank $3 because they're closer to getting to that 0. So remember, negative world, it's all opposite. All right, so here I'm going to go ahead and clean this off so we can actually do, there we go, we can actually do the activity. So first what we're going to do is we're going to take the win-loss records and we're going to plot them for each team. So again, this is where you're going to want your different colored pencils. I'm going to do the Sharks in red. So the Sharks have a combined win-loss record of 0. And then I have the Jaguars, and they have 4. And then the Badgers, they have -4. And the Tigers, they have -6. And the Cougars have 2. And the Hawks have -2. Oops. A little bit of extra marks here. There we go. And then the Wolves have +6. Okay. So now looking at this, which team, so when you combine them, these are their scores. So now which team has the best record, and how do we know? Well, to have the best record, you want to have a higher number. So in this case, the team with the highest number would be the team that has the combination of 6, which we know for this would be the Wolves. All right, so which team has the better record? Ooh, that's a little bit large for typing. There we go. The Wolves have the better, well, we can actually say the best record. And we know this because 6 is further to the right on the number line, making it the largest value. Okay, so again, we use its place on the number line to determine which one's the greatest. And in this case, it is 6, which is the Wolves, because it is the furthest to the right. So now what we're going to take a look at is we're going to take a look at which team has the worst record. So with the worst record, you want the team that has the very least. So if the greatest or the biggest or best is on the right, then the least would have to be furthest to the left, which in this case is a -6. Okay, so even though both of these have a 6, since one is negative, it's actually smaller. Okay, it's the smallest on our number line, so that would be the Tigers. So the Tigers have the worst record because it's the smallest, and we know that because it's furthest to the right. Okay, so the Tigers have the worst record, and we know this because -6 is further to the left on the number line, making it, running out of space here, the smallest value. Okay, and I know this is going to be a little hard to see, so I'm going to jump it up here, but you're going to lose the question. Okay, so the Tigers have the worst record, and we know this because -6 is further to the left on the number line, or is the furthest on the left. So we can use a number line to help us determine which ones are least and greatest. Greatest has to be furthest to the right. Least has to be furthest to the left. So least and left. Okay, so explain what the data tell you about the win-loss records of the teams in the league. So really what you're going to look at is how can you use the data on the number line to compare the wins and losses. And one of the things that we can say is that the Badgers, Tigers, and Hawks lost more games than they won. And let's take a look at this. So the Badgers, Jaguars, and Hawks lost more games than they won. I'm going to clear this. There we go. So all of these people lost more games than they won. And we know that because they have negative numbers. Another thing that we know is that the Jaguars, Cougars, and Wolves won more games than they lost. So Jaguars, Cougars, Wolves, they all won more games than they lost because of the fact that their record is positive. Okay, so I can actually go to the next page, and I will again quickly type this for you. So the first one we said, the Badgers, Tigers, and Hawks lost more games than they won. We know this because their overall total is negative. And then we know the Jaguars, Cougars, and Wolves won more games than they lost. Oops, lost. We know this because their overall total is positive. Okay, and then now the very last one. So I want you to think of what does it mean for the Sharks? Since the Sharks have a total of 0, what do you think that means? I want you to think about it and then come back and check your answer. All right, then for the Sharks won the same number of games as the number of games that they lost. And we know this because of the fact that they are at 0. We know this because their overall total is 0. So when we take the number of times that they won and add it to the number of times that they lost, they cancel each other out. So that 0 tells us that they won and lost the same number of games. All right, so ordering positive and negative integers. So now, instead of just comparing, we're actually going to take it and we're going to order them. So if you look at this example here, we took every piece of data that we had on this table and plotted it on the number line. So now it wants me to list it from least to greatest. Well, in order to list it from least to greatest, I'm going to look at the number line and work my way from left to right. So if I work my way from left to right, I know that the first number that I'm going to list would be -5. And then my next number would be -3. And then -2, -1, 0, 3, and 4. All right, so we can use number lines to really help us determine the order of numbers based on where they're plotted. And again, the smallest is towards the left and the greatest is towards the right. Okay, so let's actually try this together. If you're ready to, go ahead and try it on your own. If you're not ready, work through it with me and you can try the next one on your own. So what we're going to do is we're going to graph the values and then order them from greatest to least. So again, greatest to least is important here. Greatest is furthest to the right. Let me get my pen here. And least is furthest to the left. So we're going to go left to right. But first we have to plot our numbers. So let's start by giving each of them a color. So -5 is red, 4 will be orange. And again, if your numbers don't match or your colors don't match mine, that's okay. We just need them all to have different colors. So it's whatever's available to you at home. -6 and then 2. And now we said we want to go greatest to least. So since we want to go greatest to least, we want to start on this end and work our way towards the left. So in this case, our greatest number would be 4. The next number would be 2. The next would be 0. And then -3. And then -5, and then -6. So another way to look at it is to say, all right, well, I know greatest to least in terms of positive numbers. Then when I'm working with negative numbers, it's almost like I look for, if it didn't have the negative, I look for my smaller size numbers, and those would go first. Again, this is going to take some practice, but in time, it's going to start to make more sense. What I'd like you to do is I would like you to pause, and I'd like you to try number 3 on your own, and then come back and check your answers. All right, in this case, I'm not going to graph them with you. I'm just going to write down the order so you can check it. So it should have been 9, 8, 5, 2, 0, -1, -6, and then -10. Okay, again, it's kind of like down, 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 up, 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 up. But remember, these are still smaller. Okay. And again, just to double check your graphing, I did do it for you here. Okay. So you should have each of your numbers graphed in the correct position. All right. Now we're actually going to write them using an inequality. All right, so we're going to use our different symbols. So remember, we have the greater than symbol. We have the less than symbol. We have greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and equal. All right, so when we're using these symbols, it's not enough anymore to say, okay, well, the symbol eats the larger number. You actually have to read it as a sentence. All right, so on our number line here, we have 51, and it's further to the right than 36. So what that means to me, since 51 is further to the right, that 51 is greater than 36. So to write that as an inequality, I write 51 first is greater than 36. But another way that I can look at it is saying, okay, well, 36 is also further to the left. So 36 is also less than 51. Notice that where I put my number changes. Okay, and then my symbol would also change. So yes, the symbol is still eating the larger number, but the way we read it is different. So in this case, it's 36 is less than 51. And up here, it's 51 is greater than 36. But if I flip the symbol, I have to flip my numbers as well. Okay? You have two examples down here that you can also look at for help, but I would rather go through and work on some problems with you. All right, so here we go. We are going to compare using the number line. So let's take 10 and negative 2. So I'm going to do red for these. So negative 10 is over here, and negative 2 is right here. Well, negative 2 is further to the right on the number line, so since it is further to the right on the number line, it is greater than negative 10. However, since negative 10 is listed first, I want to compare negative 10 to negative 2. So negative 10 is, oops, writing my symbol the wrong way. So negative 10 is less than negative 2. Now here I have negative 6 and positive 6. So positive 6, negative 6. So since negative 6 is listed first, I want to compare the negative 6 to the positive 6. Negative 6 is further to the left, so it's less than the positive 6. And then negative 7 and negative 8. Since negative 7 is written first, that's what I want to compare, and then negative 8. Well, negative 7 is further to the right, which means it's actually bigger than negative 8. So in this case, negative 7 is greater than negative 8. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to try these two on your own. I want you to go back and try to write two inequalities that compare these two numbers. Okay, and remember, because of the fact that you're using the same numbers, but you're going to have to change the order, but you're also going to have to think of which one's actually larger and which one's smaller. When you come back, we'll check your answers. All right, so here I have your answers for you. So we could have said that negative 2 is greater than negative 18. So this one again being the greater than. And we could have said negative 18 is less than negative 2. Here, even though 39s are the same, one is positive and one is negative, so 39 is greater than negative 39, or negative 39 is less than 39. So here we go. So here are your guided practice problems, 1 through 14. I want you to take your time. I want you to solve all these for our next class. Use the number lines when you need them. If you don't have one, draw one. But also keep in mind, so like for number 3, the further to the left you go, it looks like your numbers get bigger, but their value actually gets smaller. Okay? So further left, number gets bigger, value gets smaller, making it a lesser value. As always, if you have any questions, please be sure to write them down or email me so we can go over them in class.